You guys ready for the plot twist of the year? You ready for this? Hey everyone. Sorry, I'm a little bit unhinged right now because I've recorded this video 3 times now, but all times they've looked bad. Something's wrong with my camera. Don't know why. I'm trying this on my phone. I don't know how it's gonna look, but we're gonna do it anyway. So what video are we doing today? So as you may know, there's a little movie out there called Spider-Man No Way Home. It's very independent cinema. It's releasing today. A lot of people are going to see it. A lot of people have already seen it. I was going to see the movie, and I was even going to get, there's an exclusive G Fuel flavor they made for it. I was going to do something goofy, like trying it or something. But it hasn't shown up, and it's not showing up until like Saturday because they messed up. Honestly, I just don't want to see it because I know I'm not going to enjoy it, and I don't really want to make a negative review just sprouting all this negativity that no one really wants to see. Like, if you're gonna go see the movie, just like enjoy it, like enjoy yourself. I'm not gonna rain on your parade. I don't want to do that. So I decided instead to do this little MCU tier list thing here. So I have my little tier list here, and just to kind of divide up how I feel about each of the movies that are going to be on here, the S tier, those are my all-time favorites. These are ones I could pop on pretty much anytime and really enjoy. Then for the A tier, these are ones I think are pretty good movies, but I'm not really always in the mood for them, and just, yeah, that's generally how I feel. Like, not always going to be my cup of tea. And then for the B tier, these are ones I can enjoy, or maybe I enjoyed in the theater, but I don't really feel like watching them again, and I don't really remember much about them in general. And then for C tier, this is very average MCU formula Kevin Feige crap is how I put it. That's just the realness, man. And then for the D tier, these are trash. Like, I don't like these at all. And then for the purple tier, these are ones I haven't seen and I probably won't see, and I just don't care. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. So first up, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, this might be a hot take, but I don't hate this movie. Like, I think it's okay. I really enjoy it. I think Paul Rudd brings a lot of charisma and comedy to this movie that I think makes it pretty fun. It's some nice Peyton Reed cinema. If you aren't aware of Peyton Reed, you're really missing out. Peyton Reed makes the best film. We're talking about true cinephiles like David Lynch, Denis Villeneuve, Gaspar Noé, or Andrei Tarkovsky. You know, among those titans should be Peyton Reed. I mean, I don't think Stalker is nearly as good as Yes Man. I'm gonna put it in B tier. What is going on with my mouse? Oh my god. Okay, there we go. It's enjoyable. It's a fun movie. I just don't really know if I'm going to see it again. It's not the best thing ever. I feel pretty much the same about the first movie. Once again, Peyton Reed cinema. But, like, the villain's not great. But the one thing I will say about this one compared to the first one is that the action sequences are much better. And you can tell they had the Edgar Wright touch for the first movie because they're very creative. I really like the scene where he's running through the miniature building and the gunshots are just shooting everything around it. Pretty fun scene. So I'll go the same tier for Ant-Man. I enjoy it, but I don't think it's amazing. Next up is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I'm not a big Joss Whedon fan at all, but I actually like this one more than the first Avengers movie. I think the action is better. I like the villain more, even though he's a little too quippy for my taste, but that's okay. There are a lot more sequences that I find pretty memorable in this movie, like the Hulkbuster versus Hulk scene. I love the scene where they all get hypnotized by Scarlet Witch and they have their visions of like their biggest fears. That's really creative and cool to go into each of the characters' individual personalities for a little bit. So it is a little messy. There's a little too much going on, and it's a little too set up-y at points, but I still really enjoy this movie. I would go B tier. Maybe that's being a little generous, but I have fun. I can't even lie. Next up is Avengers Infinity War. Now, I love this movie to death. I think this could be my favorite MCU movie. It's probably between 2 movies in my mind. But I just think everything comes together so well. It's the perfect culmination of the past 10 years. And yeah, the pacing of this movie, I love the pacing because it never stops building. It just keeps going and going, and it's just so fun. So I'm gonna go S tier. I honestly love this movie. And the villain, I mean, I know Thanos is kind of a meme at this point, like, but I think he's such a menacing villain. And like, that's one of the biggest problems Marvel's had, is that their villain game has been pretty weak. But Thanos, no complaints.
Avengers Infinity War.
All right, next up on here, we have Captain Marvel. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, no. No. And I don't even mean to be one of those people who hates this movie just because of the SJW agenda that some people try to paint it to be. I just don't think it's good. Like, it has the really cliche, stereotypical MCU structure to it that's just so repetitive at this point. And Brie Larson is just not great in this movie, in my opinion. She doesn't really fit the role, which sucks because I think she's really great in the Tommy Wiseau film. But I was never crazy about this one. And I'm a really big fan of Fantastic Four, so seeing what they did to the Skrulls, I didn't like it.
Fantastic Four.
Moving on from there, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This is a great movie. I enjoy it. I don't know if I like it quite as much as some other people do. Like, I think the exposition scene in the middle of the movie is a little forced and goes on a little too long. And I'm not always super into this movie. I'm not always in the mood for it, but I still think it's a great movie. It's a nice change of pace. I think the action is really gritty and has this Bourne-ish energy that's pretty nice. So I will go A tier. I think it's pretty great. My computer is glitching out, but yeah, A tier for that one. I can't really do the same thing for the next movie though. The first Avenger, it's kind of mid. Like, I do kind of like, there's just like chaos going on out there. I don't know what's going on, but hello. But I like this movie. I kind of like how it has the old 40s feel to it, and it feels kind of like a propaganda piece at points, which is it has an interesting personality to it, but it gets a little sloppy toward the end, and especially when it's trying to tie into the Avengers, it gets really kind of annoying, and it feels like it's on a speed run to tie in with everything. So I'm gonna go, I guess I'm thinking of Chris Evans, the terrible CGI in the first third. So I guess C tier. It's pretty average. All right, next up is Captain America: Civil War. Now, this is a movie I loved the first time I saw it. I thought it was amazing. But it's one of those movies that the more you think about, the more it just kind of falls apart in a way, especially Zemo's plot. And I don't even think he's like the wackest villain ever. I think compared to other ones, he's a little better, but still, his plan is a little not great. A little not great. That's a great way to put it. But yeah, his plan is a little rocky and not the best. Definitely not. So even though the action sequences are amazing, I really love the introduction of Black Panther and the introduction of Spider-Man. Not what they do with him later. The introduction was good. So I will go A tier. I think I like it about as much as Winter Soldier. I think I can say that. Right, next up is Doctor Strange. Honestly, this is an MCU origin movie out of 10. Like, it's fine. I think it's the kind of movie where it's really average and it's only elevated by the special effects. And honestly, they're pretty reminiscent of Inception type stuff. So it's nothing groundbreaking at all outside of like the trippy sequence when he's first being sent into whatever. I don't know. And the Dormammu CGI, it's not good. It's not good at all. So I'm going to go C tier on this one. It's just it's kind of an like, it happened, and that's about it. Next up is Avengers Endgame. Now, this is another movie where the first time I saw it, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Thought it was pretty fun. Not perfect, but pretty fun. But it's really soured on me over time. I can't lie. Like, yeah, sure, the last action scene is amazing, and it's everything you would want from a big franchise-ending movie. But the preceding two acts are not great. Like, I do kind of like Thanos dying at the very beginning, but then that's also a problem because the Thanos they have at the end of the movie is not the same Thanos. So like any emotional attachment you would have is not there at all. They're just fighting some random villain who doesn't even know who they are. And they just use Thor for a fat joke. Like, It's 2019, the time this movie came out, and we're still making like blatant fat jokes like this. That's really the level we're at. And the second act of this movie is literally just fan service. Like, oh, cool, they went to the original Avengers, they went to Guardians of the Galaxy, they went to Thor the Dark World. Like, of all of them, really? I don't know, man. It's fine. It's enjoyable, but like not great. So B tier. All right, I gotta get a seltzer. This is gonna be a long list. Next up are the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Now, I'm just gonna do them together, a 1-2 punch. I think they're pretty good. I think they're great movies, and these are the few MCU movies. These are among the few where they actually have a really distinct personality, and that is just James Gunn. Like, James Gunn just put his heart and soul into both of these movies. Can it go a little too over the top? Yeah. But I still think it works for the most part, and even though Guardians 2 has a lot of comedy that doesn't hit for me, I think I like it even more than the first one because the villain's better and the colors of that movie just pop, man. And I think it's a far more emotionally satisfying experience, and I actually really love it. So I'm going to put the first movie in A tier, if it loads, okay. And then Guardians 2, I'm going S tier, which may be kind of a hot take, but I love this movie. Sorry. All right, next up is, oh no. Oh no. Look, I think I've said enough about this movie and this iteration of Spider-Man at this point. Like, they've just really mishandled this character. And I've heard that in No Way Home, they kind of make him an adult by the end, and he's finally like Spider-Man instead of Iron Boy. But it really took you like 6 movies in the MCU to do that. This is just so frustrating. And it's like, Peter, you literally died in Infinity Snore. And like, you're still making stupid, like mind-blowingly dumb mistakes, like giving this random guy your Tony Stark glasses, which, why are Tony Stark glasses in the movie to begin with? But like, seriously, dude? Like, I don't know. And the whole sequence where he accidentally shoots the missile and he's like, oh, look, a goat. And he jumps. Oh my God. Embarrassing. Embarrassing movie, but not total trash. There's stuff I like about it. So I'm going to go C tier on this one. I think it's average overall. That's being nice to it. But yeah, not into it. Definitely have a lot of concerns. But Zendaya is in it. She gives a very good performance. So that's a redeeming quality. That's definitely a redeeming quality for sure. Now, I'm a little biased on Hulk because I'm a big fan of like I read a lot of the Jones run in the comics when I was younger, and I love the grittiness of this movie. Like, it's not super dark or anything, but I feel like it's more the tone that I want for a Hulk movie than anything Mark Ruffalo has done with the character. I don't like how Mark is literally just playing himself at this point, and it just makes him a quit machine. Like, when they did Professor Hulk in Endgame, I literally lost my mind. But anyway, talking about this movie, I actually like Ed Norton a lot more than Mark Ruffalo, and this isn't a great movie or anything, but I still have a lot of fun with it. As a Hulk fan, I'm biased. The CG hasn't held up, but still have fun with it, and I like the tone. So I'm gonna go with B tier for Hulk. All right, next up is Iron Man 2. I'm just gonna say it, this movie sucks. It's definitely D tier. It's horrible. I think it's the worst MCU movie. And the thing that really rubs me the wrong way about this movie is that it has this sense of ego to it that's really gross. And it's just like, oh, the first movie was so great. Let's just coast off of the success for it for 2.5 hours and not really try to do anything interesting and just be like, wow, we're so cool. And that's like the whole movie. And, you know, Spider-Man 3, I love that movie. I don't care. For Spider-Man 3, they do something kind of similar with Peter, and they make him really narcissistic for a lot of it, but that's actually in service of a strong character arc throughout the movie. But this is just sucking it. I'm not going to say. This is just I don't know. I just don't like it in Iron Man 2. It doesn't work. And next up is Iron Man 3. This is a pretty polarizing movie. I definitely have problems with this movie. Like, the Mandarin stuff really made me mad in the theater. As a comic fan, that was just disrespectful. Like, what the hell, Shane Black? But, you know, there's still stuff about it that I think is pretty good. I really like the first half of it, and especially when he's with the kid in that one little town and they're like building like Iron Man parts together. Like, this is a cute little thing to do. But yeah, definitely not the best. Pretty tonally inconsistent in a lot of places, but I still have fun with it. I can't lie. So I would probably go B tier for this one. I think it's fun. And then the first Iron Man movie, it's kind of hard not to put it in at least A tier. I don't know if it's aged quite as well since the MCU is such a strong, like, repetitive formula at this point, but I still think it's pretty good. Robert Downey Jr. really defined that character and made it his own. So yeah, I would just go A tier and call it a day. Is that okay with anyone? I know I'm going really fast, but like there are so many movies and shows to talk about that I just kind of want to like get it out Jeremy John style, just like, you know. Okay, let's go. Next up is Black Panther. Now, every time I see this movie, I want to like it more, but I just don't. And I think the pacing's really weak because especially after T'Challa dies before they resurrect him, and like the whole scene of getting him to the other character and then having to do all this stuff, and then the third act really falls apart for me because emotionally I feel like all the pieces are in place for it to be really rewarding, but it just doesn't work for me. And the CG is terrible, and like the rhino and then the whole action scene in the train is just terrible. And I don't know, it's a bummer because there's so many great things. I think Michael B. Jordan is amazing and I love the story and concept, but I think the execution is just so weak. I was really bummed out. So for that reason, I'm going to go C tier. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but there's just a lot going against it for me. All right, next up is Spider-Man Coming. I feel about the same about this one as I do the second one. It's fine. Like, you can watch it, but in this movie, he's Iron Boy. He's just Iron Man's little bitch the whole time, and I don't need to see that. And I've made it no secret. Tom Holland as this character, I actually really like the first third of this movie up until like he sees the purple cloud and the whole thing falls apart. I like the John Hughes feel it had going for it, but the dependence on Iron Man, and I think the villain was kind of weak, and especially considering how every Spider-Man villain uses Stark tech or is screwed over by Tony Stark in some way. It's just so annoying. So I don't like either of these Spider-Man movies too much. So that, yeah, C tier. All right, next up is Thor, also known as Boar. I'm just going to put it in C tier next. Next up is Boar the Dark Boar. Next. To be fair to these movies, they're fine. Like, you can watch them. I actually don't mind Boar the Dark Boar or Snore the Dark Snore as much as like a lot of people do. I think it's tolerable. But they just like, Thor was never that interesting to me in these movies. He's just kind of like, he's a god, man. And especially that first one with the whole fish out of water thing. We've seen that in so many movies. I don't need it again. No. Like, I like the Frost Giants. That was fun. And I think some of the the portal fights in Boar the Dark Boar were fun, but none of these movies really do anything for me. I can't lie. Even though I don't like the first two Thor movies, the third one I absolutely adore. Like, I think it's great. And I'm a pretty big fan of Taika Waititi, so I could be a little biased, probably. But I think it just works on every level. The quips, even though I critique MCU quips a lot, I think they actually really work here. And I think they reinvigorate Thor and actually make him a really fun character. And maybe a little bit too much like Chris Hemsworth himself. He's kind of playing himself to an extent, but I still think it works, and especially compared to everything else Thor had been up to this point. And I really like all the supporting characters in this movie, like Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie was great, and Jeff Goldblum had a fun little role, and I like Tom Hiddleston as Loki, even though I'm not the biggest Loki fan in the world. You'll see that later. And I'm not a fan of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, but when he was Hulk, the Planet Hulk stuff, I enjoyed seeing that. And Cate Blanchett as Hela, I don't think she's the best villain in the world, but she's having a lot of fun with the role, and I think she's a really fun presence. I think Thor Ragnarok is the MCU movie I've rewatched the most, so I have to go S tier on this one. All right, this next one could be a little controversial. It could be, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Yeah. The first Avengers movie has never done anything for me. I am not a fan of Joss Whedon at all. I think his really quippy dialogue just gets on my nerves and it drives me insane. And this whole movie is basically, they're on a helicarrier talking the whole time with really cringy and embarrassing dialogue. And then there are a few action scenes, but the one at the end just looks like they're fighting on a green screen and it looks terrible. So I get nothing out of this movie, and especially in retrospect, because I feel like, especially at the time, there was such a novelty to this movie. Like, we'd never seen anything like this before, that like a lot of people really latched onto that aspect. But looking back on it, I don't think it's aged well at all. And for me, I didn't like it much at the time, and especially now, I just think it's unbearable. I think it's obnoxious. So I'm gonna go D tier. Like, maybe that's where I lose every subscriber on the planet, but I've never liked this movie. I don't know what to say. All right, next up is WandaVision. I already have a review of this. You can watch that if you want. I think it's pretty mid. I really liked it about in the midway point. I thought there was a really nice pace to it. It was going in interesting and intriguing directions. But once the cat got let out of the bag, it just really deflated my balloon. I had a nice balloon dog that was made, but it just gone. So I'm gonna have to go and C tier. That was just no. I just didn't like where it ended up. Next up is the Falcon and Winter Soldier. This is fine. Like, it's a show you can watch. I think the villains are absolutely terrible. What, the Atom Smashers? Is that what they're called? I don't know. The one thing I did like was Zemo. I thought the way they took his character, it was pretty fun. They made him pretty goofy, but that's okay. He was fun. But yeah, I didn't like this. Like, it was pretty mid. It didn't really do that much for me. The action sequences were mid. And the Walker stuff was kind of interesting, especially at the end of, I think it was episode 4. There's a really big moment, but then they kind of forget, like, they don't know what to do with the character past that point, and they just kind of like sideline them. So yeah, it was wasted potential. It was a disappointment for me. So I'm gonna go C tier. All right, next up is Lackey, Loki, whatever you want to call it. I didn't see this. I watched half of the first episode and I just gave up because I don't like Loki as a character. I get bored by Loki. He's the most overused character in the MCU for me. I'm good. So I'm just going to put him in the have not seen and do not care category. Next up is Shang Chi. Now, this movie, I think it started off very strong. I really liked the bus action scene. That was pretty fun. And I think Simu Liu is really great as Shang Chi. And Awkwafina, who I usually don't really care for, I thought she was pretty fun as his friend in the movie. But there's a point of this movie where it just takes a turn that doesn't interest me at all, and then it turns into big generic MCU battle scene at the end, and I didn't like it. I thought the Mandarin is a really lackluster villain, so maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. I still think overall I enjoyed the movie, but I'm not gonna watch it again. So I'm gonna go B tier. I'm being nice. I'm being nice to Shang-Chi because I think it started off really great, and that's about it. Next up is Whack Widow. I didn't like this. I made a review. You could watch that. Florence Pugh was great. I loved Florence Pugh in this movie. Nice to see her in Hawkeye. But nah, man. Nah, this ain't it, Chief. You can see more of my thoughts in the video. I don't feel like talking about it again. It's just very generic. All right, next up is What I'm just going to go ahead and do this and move on. And then finally is Hawkeye, which I've actually kept up with. I've seen episode 5 and I enjoy it. It's fun, and I really like Haley Steinfeld. I think she's great as Kate Bishop, but it's kind of turning into a generic MCU thing at this point. And I guess that's just every movie and show that they'll ever do. I like it, but I don't know if I'll ever rewatch it again. I'll probably go B tier on it because I enjoy it, but it's not great. And some of the CG is pretty spotty. I will say, though, the end of episode 5, the character they reveal, and these last 2 I haven't seen. I didn't see Eternals. I don't need to. I know Kingo's in the movie. Kingo is the GOAT. Kingo is a great character. So maybe I'll watch it on Disney Plus for all the Kingo scenes. I'll just watch a compilation of all the good Kingo goodness. but I just don't like this movie. I haven't seen the movie and I'm already saying I don't like it. I just know I probably won't like it because it's easily the worst received MCU movie, and from what I've heard of the plot, it just doesn't sound good. So haven't seen it and don't care. So let me know what you think of this list, what you disagree with, what you want to send me death threats over, and I will take it. I will take it like a champ. Thanks for watching. I'm really sorry I didn't see No Way Home, or No Way It's Good, or No Way I'll Like It. That's how I'll call it. Spider-Man, no way I'm gonna like it. I just I didn't feel like making a negative video where I'm disrespecting all these people who worked really hard on it. I don't want to put that kind of content in the world right now. So yeah, I'm taking a break. Guys, so I originally made this video and I didn't put Spider-Man No Way Home in it because I said I wasn't going to see it. But then I saw it last minute because I couldn't resist. I had to see the movie, right? I loved it. I loved it. You know, this is just the year of surprises. This is the year where the Snyder Cut turned out to be great. And then this movie that I've been hating on for literally the past year, maybe two, I love it. So what the f? You know, John Watts finally made a Spider-Man movie that wasn't just watered down Iron Boy. And see, here's the thing about this movie, okay? All my greatest fears for this movie were about the nostalgia bait and how it was going to be used to overshadow anything else in the movie. And it is used quite a bit, and I do think there's a bit too much of a reliance on it, but it's definitely Tom Holland's movie. Like, at the end of the day, it definitely is his movie, and it doesn't get too carried away with all the nostalgia. So, like, for some reason, this actually turned out to be the most Tom Holland Spider-Man movie of all of them, because in the other ones he had Iron Man and he had Nick Fury and like standing in their shadow. That was basically all they were, and it was really annoying. But there's like almost no mention of Tony Stark in this. Well, there's a little bit, but there's almost no Tony Stark. And the whole Doctor Strange thing, I was terrified. Like, I was literally terrified that he was going to be the new like mentor, but he's not at all. And there's a point of the movie, without spoilers, where he's basically just not in it. So it's almost like he was obligated to be in part of it, and then he's just gone. So that was such a pleasant surprise. And like, damn, I don't even, because you guys know, like, I was so ready to come in hating this movie and just saying how terrible it was. But man, I just think like this is the first Spider-Man movie in so long where I've actually felt the visceral nature of action scenes, like specifically one in the middle and one toward the end. There are scenes where it's like very intense, and it has that viscerality of the Raimi Spider-Man, like the first one specifically, the big fight with Goblin in that movie. Like, I'm just in shock. I didn't expect to be doing this. I didn't expect to be eating this much crow. This wasn't even going to be part of my tier list, but now, like, it's on it. And I do have issues with it. I think I might make a spoiler video at some point, just because there's a lot I would need to unpack. But overall, I do think there are enough moments of this movie that work so well that it does overshadow the stuff that doesn't work. And there is stuff I'm conflicted about, don't get me wrong, but that's very spoilery and I can't really talk about it. Not yet. So on the tier list, I definitely like it a lot more than like the C and B stuff. So I'm gonna put it A tier. Oh God. I was so disrespectful. This is my message to John Watts. I was so disrespectful to you for Far From Home and Homecoming, and I still don't really care for those movies, don't get me wrong. But I forgive you. And that's a lot. That's a lot coming from me, because anyone who knows me personally knows I've been bashing those movies for so long. But this is finally the movie that turned Tom Holland's Spider-Man, or Iron Boy, into Spider-Man. Like, I finally buy him as Spider-Man after all these years. So, yeah. 'Tis the season for surprises. Fa la 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 la. What the f***?